No, I was gonna say everybody is good to go. So as they
Alrighty.
come, I'll handle that.
Alrighty. Well, thank you everybody for joining. We're going to talk today about how to keep our talent from being stolen in 2021. And today is really going to be about, obviously everyone is dealing with what a challenging year 2020 was, and how to reinvent how we manage people and retain staff, and how do we find new staff. And we have some industry experts that are going to talk about insights that they have about the evolving workplace and the actions you could take to make sure that we're retaining our employees and doing everything we can to find new ones as well. So my name is John Rabito. I'm the Executive Vice President of TransTech IT Staffing. I have been in the IT staffing business for 26 of my 28 years, started my career in a sales role in the software business, and have been in the people business ever since. So lots of stories I could share with you. I was dealt with everything with the .com debacle based back in 99 and 2000, then lived through this industry in the financial crisis in 08, 09, and never thought I'd have to deal with the global pandemic. But here I am the third time in my career seeing the ups and downs of how people manage staff. So lots of interesting conversation. Also, before we get started, I want to announce our next webinar will be on March 10th. Mike Baskin of Mike Baskin Consulting will be hosting that, and Mike will be introducing himself at the end of our webinar today. He'll come in and give us a quick little 30-second synopsis. So we'll look forward to chatting with Mike at the end. Our speakers today, I will introduce them, and then they'll kind of give a quick little introduction about themselves. So Andy Salaverria is the Director of IT for Black Horse Carriers. I've known Andy for 4+ years now. Full disclosure, Andy is a customer as well. So Andy, do you want to give us a quick little intro about yourself?
Sure. I've been in IT management for the last 15 years in different industries, and been working for Black Horse for the last 3, and just managing the IT team here. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Welcome. And then also Mark Forbes. Mark is the CIO of D&W Fine Packing. I have known Mark for about 20+ years when he worked for this company called US Robotics that made these things called modems. You know, that's how I used to get on the internet way back when, for those older folks on the call. So Mark, you want to give a little quick introduction about yourself?
Okay, like I said, I'm the head of IT for D&W Fine Pack. We make disposable food packaging for Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, Panda Express, places like that. Everything you see in the grocery store when you walk in, the bakery and the deli section, all that plastic product and aluminum products. I've been here starting my 5th year, and yep, and focus a lot on providing the tools that the business needs.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Let's just kind of jump right into it. Obviously, we want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So really briefly, there is my email address. You can also find me on LinkedIn. If anyone on the webinar wants to know about what's going on in the industry, some industry trends, some salary reports, please feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to help you out with any of that information you might need. What I really want to get started with is that everyone that's on the call was filled out a survey, which we also sent out to a bunch of other folks who are not on the call as well. I want to go through the survey results, and then we'll kind of jump right into the conversation with Mark and Andy. So let me kind of run through the 2 slides, and then we'll go from there. So some of the responses that we received from the survey results is 79% of the folks that responded have been working remote. To be quite honest with you, I thought that number would have been a little bit higher. But yeah, 79% of everyone is working remote currently. 51% of the folks do not have a return to office plan, 49% do, so basically half and half. 67% of folks are not requiring staff to return to office as of now. And again, these are numbers that everyone on the Zoom today has responded to. And when you'll be returning to office, 80% of the folks said that it's a staggered approach. But what was really eye-opening to us is 94% of the people who responded said that working remotely has had an impact on their culture. And that to us is extremely eye-opening. And the last question was 67% are worried about losing talent when it comes back to coming back to the office and changing office attendance policies. So, this is, I think, a great place to start. Again, the 79% I was a little bit shocked by, but also it was more interesting to see how folks are, everyone agreed that their culture has suffered, but yet they want to get everyone back. They're not really sure about how they're going to get people back to the office. Andy, why don't we start with you? Can you want to talk about how working remote has impacted your culture?
Yeah, absolutely. So Black Horse, we didn't really support the work from home environment, and in fact, our ownership was very anti working remotely. And since COVID hit, that has changed dramatically. I think that it actually improved things a little bit for our employees that now have the flexibility of working remote and being a little closer to their families. So it's with that, I think this was a positive change for us.
How about you, Mark?
It's a hybrid for us. There are people at the company, especially in our corporate headquarters, that really need and want the facilities that are in the office. So, I took it by a case basis. We did have that capability. Everyone's had the capability to work remotely. So some people do go in, majority are staying out. And we continue to work through that.
Okay. When we talk about one of the things about losing talent as people want to try getting back to the office, and honestly, that is a trend that we're seeing in the industry that people are concerned about. So I know here in Illinois specifically, a lot of folks are still working from home. They're starting to come back to the office little by little, but as employers require people to come back, there is a fear that people are just not going to want to come back. And how we approach that is going to be huge. So Andy, you want to start with you and how you're going to approach having those tough conversations?
Yeah, so what we actually did, John, is we leverage a monitoring software to actually keep track of productivity. And I think that once we go back to going back to the office full time or part time, I think that that's going to give us the flexibility to prove to ownership that our employees can stay productive at home as well. And I think that's going to make a big impact. And also we're going through an acquisition right now, and our parent company it's a lot more friendly towards the remote work environment as well. So I think that's really going to be impacting us in the next months.
How about you, Mark?
I think what we're starting to talk about, at least from an IT perspective, there's interest in more of a hybrid model. Now there are certain positions that have to be there. I mean, we run manufacturing. We do have our tier one, tier two people have to be on site. That's part of the job. But for the others, what they're finding is that they definitely would like to have some like setup days where we are in the office collaborating, but it might not be every day of the week. And so we're trying to work through that model. We're actually discussing kind of following the consulting model. If people have been in consulting, it was traditional to be on the road Monday through Thursday, and Friday everyone would go into the office and do administrative things, catch up, have their meetings, have more collaboration on those days. So I don't think we're going to follow that schedule, but something similar to that. Because as they started going back, people are finding they kind of like how it breaks up the week. It actually makes them they were productive being home because a lot of obviously cut down travel, depending on how far people travel. Now my team doesn't travel that far, so they typically are under an hour. But what they're finding is adding that day in a week, it really boosts their week because it's something to look forward to and it breaks up the monotony. It sounds silly. And then as things open up more and more, they're looking forward to, I want to be in the office. And then go back to some of the other things, as silly it is, having the group of the team, grab lunch together or, whatever, do some kind of activity.
I agree. I think as soon as the vaccine is out and people feel more comfortable with getting out to lunch, getting out and having a cocktail after work, going and grabbing coffee together, that'll help that tremendously. And you probably start to see it snowball a little bit. I think the question is as to how soon is that going to happen? And then I think the other thing which is going to be interesting is how do you, and I'll ask both of you this question, how are you going to manage that there's certain people who perform well at home? There's other individuals who probably don't perform as well at home than if they're in the office. How do you decipher how to handle those conversations as to one versus the other without singling people out?
Yeah,
Maybe you want to jump in on that one, and Mark, you can as well.
Yeah, and for us, this software that we leverage, that gives us a lot more visibility into the productivity of the employees. So we can keep track of that, and we can have those conversations with the staff, and employees that are not being productive at home. We can request for those employees to come into the office. But it's going to be those are going to be tough conversations, right?
Absolutely.
I would, for the way I look at it, a lot of it's going to also depend on the manager. If someone has someone that's struggling and needs more of a face-to-face or more in-person level of support to address, or to, remediate anything, then they're going to have to kind of find a way to go do that. And that goes for me as well. I mean, if I have someone who's working directly for me that we need to be together more, then we have to find a way to do that. But again, a lot like Andy's saying, with regardless of how you measure productivity, and we have ways to measure it as well. I mean, if you're not seeing it, we can do that also virtually. It's really, I go back to some management fundamentals of, we see the productivity drop, we manage that with, how do we manage that, whether it's virtual or not virtual.
So Andy, let me ask you, how was it perceived by the employees? Because I'm assuming they were told that the monitoring was in place, correct?
That's not everybody knows, but
okay.
it was we implemented that software because we were seeing some drops in productivity, and we were concerned, and we had to deploy it across the board to just get an accurate reading, and that has helped us. We did have to approach a couple of employees and have those conversations with them. So it's helped us identify that lack of, or confirm what we were suspecting, and then address that with the employee. So it was well worth our investment in that software.
Okay.
And it's not like we monitor that. I haven't really logged into that platform in the last 2-3 weeks, but it only keeps track. Once you define it, it sort of like gives you a report of productivity, how many hours during the day they work. So that's it's not very intrusive, and it still gives us the visibility of how productive they can be at home. So it's also going to help them, when we actually make the argument that some of these resources can be, really, really productive at home, and to support that hybrid, model. So that's going to be good, I think.
Right. Well, I will tell you here, like even internally within our organization, is we implemented a new phone system at the beginning of this year. That's basically, a good voice over IP that it mirrors on your cell phone, and with the intention of, we know that we're going to probably be in a hybrid model in the future as well. And honestly, it gives some great reporting tools too, that you could really see what everybody's productivity is during the day. And,
correct.
and we share that information with everybody. So,
yeah.
Our business is very phone driven. So everyone sees everybody's report, and they know what everyone else is doing. So it's changed the mindset a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? Have you guys?
Well, we were heavy both Skype for Business, and then we moved over to Teams as Microsoft went all in on Teams. That's actually the company's primary mode of communication. So seeing everybody's presence. It's similar, but it's a little different than what you're doing. Is you have those conversations still online, and if you're noticing a trend of too many, I'm on my mobile, I'm away from the desk, lags in responses, that's our first indication that maybe something's not going on right. So we also follow an Agile Scrum methodology, and all of my teams have their daily stand-ups. So there's a definite time check-in, whatever. So I think it mirrors, although I'm interested in some of the stuff you have. I may be following up with you. I'm just curious on how that works. But it's a different approach, but yeah, the same thing. You can't see things falling off.
And that is the exact point of why we do these.
I did have people too that were already remote. So I already had people that are in different locations where it does not make sense for them to go into a manufacturing plant when they were productive at home. So I already had some staff that were remote already.
Okay. Well, I mean, both the logistics and the manufacturing going from 0 to remote is not, it is a mindset change. That's for sure.
Our plant staff is the plant staff has to be there. I mean, that's not even a question. That's
and
a whole different set of rules on management.
Yeah, and we can't really do anything for drivers on for Black Horse. We need the folks on the field too. So it's just mostly here at corporate that we were able to switch to a hybrid model. So
wonderful. I guess the big question is what's next for everybody. And, believe it or not, today's February 3rd. So we're already a month into the year, which is kind of crazy, right? We sent out a Cranes article. It's probably about 3-4 weeks ago, and it was talking about what some people in the industry are seeing. And there's a couple things that I want to note, and definitely want to get Andy and Mark's opinion on this as well. There was a gentleman from Yum Brands in the article that was quoted saying February is where he's concerned that he's going to start seeing a spike, because a lot of times year-end bonuses they come around at the end of June, end of January, beginning of February, and that's the time that people start looking. So there are some employers out there that are concerned that they're going to start seeing turnover at the beginning of this year. And then also the other part of the article that was interesting, it was talking about how now job searches are going to be nationalized. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to truly be remote, do you need to hire someone? So like the three of us sit in Chicago, and we know how great Chicago is in February if you're living in California. Good luck trying to sell someone from California to move to Chicago. But if you're willing to hire someone 100% remote, is that here to stay? And that's the question. Everyone's saying, yeah, it's all fine and good now, but at a certain point, are you going to want those people to be in the office? So interested in what both you gentlemen think about that.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be, it's going to be big for us. I think that we're going to want to have that day-to-day interaction with the employee after this goes away. But it does, like you said, it just opens up the opportunity to bring in talent from different, locations within the country, and also opens up maybe just bringing resources from outside of the country as well. And at the same time, our employees can look for jobs that are, in other geographical regions as well. So it is going to be a lot more fluid, I think. The job market is going to be more dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm hearing, I think some of the searches that have started coming up in the last few months, I think some of the recruiters are now said the companies are a lot more open to, it doesn't have to be local. It can be someone who's not local, but as long as they're willing to travel in from time to time, there needs to be some level, but it's definitely a different, they're opening it up a little bit more on the IT side. As far as the comment you have on the slide, I do think, I do think there's going to be some movement in the industry as the economy opens up and as the companies open up. I do think people are going to start moving around for a couple of reasons. But yeah, I don't know if remote might be a reason for it. I know there are definitely people, let's face it, there are people that made location changes, and maybe their companies will be good with it. But if the companies mandate, no, we're going back, you have to be back, then they may start looking for other types of positions.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think that that's going to be a challenge. And, the other thing that we're seeing here in the Midwest is a lot of the tech companies on each of the coasts are really starting to drain our talent pool, because now that they're willing to start start people 100% remote, that person that was, $150,000 a year in San Francisco, they could maybe hire for $125,000 a year in the Midwest, and they're saving money, and that person's still getting a bump up in their salary compared to what they get paid here. So it is going to be an interesting dynamic going into I would say mid-year is when we're going to see the spike with the combination of return to work and the economy coming back around.
Hey, John, let me just interject real quick because we're getting a lot of feedback in the chat. A couple of questions we're touching on Silicon Valley actually trying to poach people. So how would you compete is the question. How would you compete with an Amazon or someone that's trying to take IT talent away from somebody in the Midwest and telling them they can work remotely and get paid a better salary?
Oh, that's a good question. And you guys want to touch that one?
You gotta find the right pool. Well, I've always been into you gotta identify who your pool of candidates will be, and see how you target them, because sometimes if someone really wants that, I mean, if you can't offer, you can't go ahead. If you're a manufacturer, you can't go head to head with they want to work for a Silicon Valley company. You're not. It's night and day, right? So it's different. It really depends on what you want them to do, what the job is. Being more open on that. If that's the gating factor, then being more open on it would be the way to compete with them. If based on who the person is, what the skill set is, and if you have something that you think is really a better offer for them, really accentuating that. But that's if the tiebreaker is remote, non-remote, you'd have to get into that and identify, is that the person, do you want to go that route to get the candidate?
Yeah, that'll be a big challenge for us, because I think mostly on the culture side, we can't really compete with some of these companies. These big tech companies, they have a much better culture that attracts the younger employees too. So I think that we'll probably, like you said, we're gonna have to change the way that we approach these candidates and entice them to come work for us, and try to throw in a flexible work schedule and additional things that we currently don't have today.
The second part to that question was, are you expecting to run up against this a lot, or is this going to be an infrequent thing where somebody from the coast is trying to pick off people in the Midwest?
I think we're going to see a lot more movement, like this statement here says, in February, like maybe towards the middle of the year. But I think it's going to, basically, I think it's going to, go away a little bit towards the end of the year and into 2022. I don't think it's going to be as dynamic, but that's what I'm thinking. Because I think after a while they're going to, first they're going to not want to move as much. They may want the stability and also having that, working for somebody that's down the road is, there may be some benefits with that as well. So that their jobs are not as easy to switch to a different workforce or to a different region, I think.
Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see if I'd really think I'd see a lot of that. I find a lot of people that really are looking for something local. Now, I don't know how much that'll change after things are less remote, but there's a lot of people that want a low commute. Some people don't want to work from home. It's not a good setup for them. You know, I don't know how much of that would get picked off. Also, you know, those companies, those big tech companies are looking for a very specific skill set. It's not a, you know, that, like we know in IT, there's multiple skill sets that are out there. They're looking for a very specific skill set. So, you know, if you're running in that, you know, a lot of our company, you know, a lot of companies here, you know, we're not running in the same field, right? There's a difference between commercial software consulting and in industry IT support. So
I think that
I don't know. They're not. I don't know. Again, if I'm in an industry, there's going to be less picking off from the West Coast than if I'm in a software company.
I agree. I think that also it's I think it depends on the individual, obviously, but I think what people have to keep in mind, and we see this all the time with the candidates that we place, is yeah, money is important and name is important, but most people care, especially in IT, about the work. Is it work that I actually enjoy? And if you're working for one of those big tech companies, you might be one of 500 people on a project, and what you're responsible for is a small little sliver of the project. Whereas if you go work for a smaller organization or a medium-sized organization, you have a lot more influence on where the project is going, and your voice is a lot louder within the team. And that matters to a lot of folks. So I think that could help us, but there is a certain glamour, I guess, is the best way to say it when you hear from those companies.
That's actually a great point, John. I mean, in commercial software, the gaming stuff, I mean, even if you like my background, the bridge, I mean, engineers love to go and they go, I want to build bridges like that. But I've also had people mentor them and say, you have to understand, the company that designed that, you don't get to design that bridge. You're going to be working on the fifth cable in from the, you're going to design the fifth cable coming in from the Oakland side and down. I mean, software development is that way too. A lot of those, you know, people they work for Microsoft. They're like, I work on the game, and they show you the game, and there's like a 10-second piece. Like, I did that. So you're right. The type of work and the how much of the stack you get to touch and work on is relevant.
Okay. All right, Mike, you have any other questions before we move on to the next slide?
No, I think you're good, because we're gonna we do have more questions, but we're gonna save those till the end.
Okay. This next slide is was kind of eye-opening to me, and I'm sure it's going to be eye-opening to everyone who responded to the survey. But whenever you hear that 57% of people don't trust their current employer, I don't know, that gives me a little bit of a pit in my stomach. So as you can see, the pictures here on the slide is just how we handle our culture internally. You know, we reinvested in a new office downtown, you know, for the younger folks, that they could, you know, a place for them to go to. But really, that 57% number is really, really eye-opening. And I'm sure that's going to cause people to scratch their heads and say, all right, well, what do we do to make sure that not only are we building a great culture, but what are we doing to build trust? Because if your employees don't trust you, I think that, you know, you're behind the 8 ball from day one. So very, very eye-opening to us. I don't know, Mark and Andy, if you guys want to comment on that at all.
I thought it was when you shared that and Mike shared that, I guess I was a little bit surprised, but not surprised. I think that it's really interesting and something maybe should be shared with a lot of the management of companies, because, you know, there could be, and that's where why I think there's going to be a movement coming as things open up, because there's something going on there, and you always have to be careful. Are as management not aware that there's an undercurrent going on, and everyone's just quiet because of the way things are, right?
Right.
I mean, this is a pandemic. A lot of people, you know, they don't want to get furloughed, they don't want to get laid off. You know, everyone's just holding tight, but you know, it's possible, and I've seen it in other places in business. You know, there might have been decisions or moves made that were unpopular, driving that number, but no one's telling anyone because, you know, they don't want to get on the radar, but once things open, they're going to look for something different. So,
I agree.
I think it's something that I actually am starting to share that with, if we can, I'm going to share that with some of our HR people saying, this is interesting stat, you know, we might need to, you know, companies may want to do some satisfaction surveys, see how they're actually doing.
Yeah, we actually do for our drivers. We do a satisfaction survey. I think, you know, regularly throughout the year. Not for only for employees that or for drivers that are leaving the company, but also the ones that are staying. And it is still, you know, very. I was surprised to see this big number, and I think it's you know, something that we need to continue working on it, being more transparent and communicating better with employees. And especially with what's going on today in the with the pandemic, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's you always wonder what people are thinking when they're at home. And then and this stat will get you thinking that even more right now.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, it's important to over communicate on things, and yeah, it won't be the first time companies have made decisions and everything's fine, but it's that silence is also a
Yeah. And do you think
feedback.
do you think this is also the product of maybe some lack of communication and lack of interaction that we're not having anymore because of the pandemic?
Oh,
We're not.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think that we probably think that we communicate more than we actually do, because everyone gets really busy during the day. And I think if you start thinking about all your direct reports and start thinking about how often you truly talk to them in a given day, it's probably not as much as you think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, plus there's a lot of companies, they've made decisions. I mean, there's parts. So, you know, Andy, your business is, I mean, transportation is huge right now. I mean, there's a shortage on drivers, which obviously is why you do, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all that surveys. There's a shortage of manufacturing workers because, you know, just because there is, right? But there are other companies that have literally had to really try to hold down everything because, you know, anything restaurant industry related, a lot of that stuff, medical related, there's been just lots of layoffs and stuff there. And that's going to drive a lot of mistrust because people are nervous. What's going to happen? And is it going to come back? And, you know, when it does come back, what's the company going to be like?
Correct.
You know, because this has thrown a lot of companies into survival mode.
Well, and I think that's actually, Mark, that's a great point, is that companies had to go into survival mode, and maybe that doesn't trickle down to everyone that's at home, right? So it's, you know, there's decisions that are made that people see, but there's also decisions that are made that people don't see, and they might not necessarily appreciate those decisions, but that's the reason how people stay employed, correct? So I think that's where, to Andy's point, the over communication probably is a positive thing.
Yep, oh, absolutely.
All right, well, at this point, Mike, this is when we're going to open it up to questions, correct?
So I'll start chronologically because we have a really good question up here first. So this is for both the panelists here. Besides monitoring work remote behavior, what other metrics have been adopted to measure production and motivation? And then they gave an example. Development and deploy cycles went from once or twice a month pre-COVID to daily in Q3 2020, which is a clear indicator of how well we calibrated a team. So I guess the short version of that is, what other metrics have been adopted to measure production and motivation?
So for us, I mean, the big, you know, the big challenge was some of the developers that we had, because you know, they didn't use a you know, set of tools. We did monitor some of the code and some of the deliverables and the releases, but it was a little bit more difficult for us to, you know, keep a pulse on productivity. For other employees that we had on the support side, you know, they used regular tools that that gives us that the confirmation that they are being productive at home, like, ticketing and other management tools that we have. So
we use with the daily Scrum meetings. I mean, obviously, we're tracking everything that's going on. So, in general, I know a lot of my teams and teams at other companies have said they've gotten a lot more done on their project work, on software development, from the remote work, just adding more hours back into the mix and being more focused. So yeah, I measure it mostly that way. And then watching and happens been a shift, but the like Andy said, the service desk, tickets and things like that, if they're getting big backlogs and things like that, and that would be a, potentially you're not getting to something, or things are getting backed up, and they shouldn't be, if you've kept the same staff on. So a combination of that on the support side and on the development side, how many things are being moved in, how many new features are the projects moving forward at the same pace. So we're able to track that.
Yeah, the next question had to do with John's comment along the monitoring system, but you said about how we at TransTech have an open book, essentially, where everybody can see everyone else's call logs. And the question was, what are the panelists' views of having everyone see everyone else's productivity measurements?
For us, it's also, we have some work that, doesn't involve a computer. We have a lot of testing that we do on mobile devices. So and also we have sometimes, a holiday, and we have, personal situations that it will be difficult for us to be able to share those metrics and have an accurate a picture, for the entire staff. So, I don't know that it will be, fair to share those. It will be, it will be challenging to do so, I think. Just it's not going to paint a very clear picture of the productivity across the board. Something you can compare.
For us, I mean, all the knowledge workers, which would be basically everyone has a Microsoft, since it's a tech audience, a Microsoft E3 type license and that, they're all up on Teams. That's really the open availability collaboration. You can see everyone at the company and what they're doing. As far as monitoring people and activity and stats, for a long time, I'm a little wary of, anytime I want the managers of the company to manage the people, and not go to IT. A classic IT thing is, well, I'd like to see what the, monitoring things like their emails or things like that. Those are all handled at all my companies with, working with HR, but we focus on traditional management practices to manage the people.
Another question that falls in line with that is, have you seen some of your top performers come and ask for raises or incentives based on their increased performance? And are you prepared to handle those?
I haven't seen it. I think that through this pandemic, I think everybody's been more on the cautious side and just basically, trying to perform and trying to keep moving ahead. I haven't heard employees, asking for increases based on the productivity increase. Have you, Mark?
The questions I get are the regular ones I usually get is, what's the cycle? Is it changing? A lot of questions with the company, which are all fed back on, where we at with compensation and all the other benefits and, things like that. So it's about the same level. My groups will always ask me that. So pandemic doesn't change it. Sorry. And that's and they kind of learn from me. So yeah, they always want to maximize what they can get. And also make it a communication. And if there's something going on in the market, they let us know. They let me know. People always let me know, going, hey, if they have concerns, it's keeping the dialogue open.
The next question goes more to culture. It's any suggestions on how to provide remotely what people used to get from being in the office?
I would say like video interactions. Try to schedule some along with the meetings. Try to schedule some time for just hanging out, and maybe at the end of the day have a beer. Doing some lunches. Just trying to keep that interaction going through Teams.
Yeah, we do some similar ones. I've seen some teams doing kind of a video like happy hour type thing. Turning the camera on definitely helps. We actually trained our whole sales force. We actually re-outfitted them all webcams and actually did training, partnered with HR on how to do things virtually, because that was the biggest group hit. Someone actually said to me, she goes, I've been on the road every other week for 20 years. I thought this would be over. And this is back in June. They just have to find a different way to work. So we're using the video, and we're talking about how we do that, because the thing is with the video, and it's great conversations about it, is we can turn the videos on, but hey, some of my some meetings that I'm involved in, it's a 3-hour meeting. So we're saying we can't do 3 hours video. If we're going to do 3 hours, then we have to actually break the meetings up into smaller pieces and focus. And so it goes back to the effective meetings topic, right? So let's turn the video on, but make it an effective meeting.
I know for TransTech, if I could speak for us, John, is, we've done happy hours. We do a football survival pool throughout the year. There's quizzes. We have like a Tuesday meeting. And then we'll do like different quizzes, highlight people's accomplishments, highlight their anniversaries, just anything that kind of keeps you engaged and aware of the other people that you're working with on a daily basis, I think is a good thing. And I know for me mentally, as a person that's the recipient of most of those, it kind of helps me reset and, break away from upstairs. There's 2 kids, and you're completely honed in and focused on what's happening at the company. So it makes you feel more engaged. And I think that was the last of our questions. So unless there's anyone else that wants to pop in, we can move along, John.
Okay. Well, is Mike ready? Mike Baskin ready to pop in for 30 seconds?
Yes, give me 1 second to get him ready.
So again, Mike's webinar is going to be on March 10th. You'll be seeing invites going out for that, and then you'll be seeing it on social media as well. So definitely want to encourage everyone to sign up for it. He's a great speaker.
Mike's with us now.
Before I say anything about me, can I say something about you?
Sure can, Mr. Baskin.
I thought that was really interesting, Andy and Mark, really interesting. And just as a thought, this is what I wrote down as my big takeaway. Know who you are talking to and what they need to be productive and what they really value about working with you. That whole thing about trying to be poached, from the West Coast and all that, that was so interesting. So thank you. About our next webinar. So something I'd like to bring up that actually my clients bring up a lot. One of the things they often talk about is that this idea that you pay for new hires from the very first minute. But then the question is, how do you get them to be productive from that very first minute? And how long does it take for a new hire to become productive, start doing the work that you're paying for? So what I hope to be useful on in the webinar is to offer a simple model that helps you narrow the gap between paying for their performance and their performing. So that's it. That's my commercial.
Well, thank you, Mike. We look forward to seeing you on the 10th. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for you. Use.
All right. Again, I just want to point out, if anyone would like to reach out to me, do any market reviews, it's Rabito at transtechit.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I want to thank Mark and Andy very much today for joining. I know they're very busy in their schedules, so we certainly appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule today to chat. I think it was great. Really enjoyed the conversation and would like to continue it moving forward. Mike, do you want to talk about the survey real quick?
Yeah, so following this, I'm guessing a little bit later on today. As soon as I can get it out, we'll send a brief survey, maybe like 5 questions, and just give us an overall rating of how you enjoyed it, what we could improve on, and maybe even some topics that you would like to see in the future. This will also be up on YouTube by Friday morning. So in case there's a part that you missed or something else that you want to interact with or somebody you want to share it with, we'll have a link sent out to you directly for our YouTube channel, and then you can use it as you see fit.
Wonderful. And please be honest with your feedback. We really would appreciate that. Well, again, Mark, Andy, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for joining. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah, thanks for having
Hey,
us.
guys.
Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.